Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Chantel, and today I'm going to be doing a tag that I do every year, and that is the Mid-Year Freakout Tag. And I'm going to be doing a little bit of recapping of the first half of the year and discussing a little bit about, how my reading's been going and where I'm at with my goals and things like that. So yeah, I know Lectin at Reading from the Depths did tag me in this, though I was already going to do it anyway. But thanks Lectin for tagging me. I appreciate that. But yeah, I do want to talk a little bit about what I've been reading so far this year. And I do think that this tag, while it is a bit of a misnomer, because I am not actually freaking out about my reading. I do not tend to freak out about my reading, but it is a good tag to do to sort of recap the year and think about what I've been reading so far and what I still want to be reading later in the year. So before I do the tag itself, I do want to give you a couple of stats. So far this year, I've read, as of recording, I've finished 31 books so far this year, which is a little on the low side for me. But as I've said in the past couple of videos, I've been pretty slumpy for a couple of months this year. Haven't been reading very much for various reasons, and so I did slow down quite a bit, especially in the spring with my reading. So honestly, the fact that I've gotten to 31 books so far this year is actually, I think, pretty good, because I was not on track to hit 30 books by mid-year. Like back in April, May, I was not on track to get to 30 books, and I have surpassed 30 books. So that is fine. Again, I don't care really about the numbers anyway. I'm very much a quality over quantity kind of gal. And for the most part, the quality of what I've been reading this year has been really good. I will say that of those 31 books, 16 of them have been divided between 3 authors. So I've been reading a lot of series and a lot of stuff by the same authors over and over again. I've read, of course, all 9 of the Witcher books by Andrzej Sapkowski this year. So that's obviously a big chunk of my reading has been Witcher. And then 4 books, the Rainwild Chronicles by Robin Hobb, and I've read 3 books by Catherine Arden this year. I finished the Winternight trilogy, so I read the last 2 books in the Winternight trilogy, and I just finished reading her newest release, which is another standalone historical fantasy called The Unicorn Hunters. So I've read 3 Catherine Arden books. So that's half of my reading so far this year has been those 3 authors. And I've also, some of those have been rereads. Some of the Witcher books were rereads. And I also just finished rereading Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. So I've also done a fair amount of rereading this year too. So all that to say, it to some extent doesn't feel like I've been reading a lot of new, different things, just because I've been so hyper-focused on those few authors. But I have read some other stuff, and I am hopefully going to talk about some of it as I work through this tag. So I'm going to try not to have the same book be the answer to all of these questions. I'm going to try to talk about as many different books as I can as I go through the questions in this tag, but we'll see how we go. Okay, we will see how we go. The first question, of course, is the most obvious one, and it's what's the best book you've read so far this year, or what's your favorite book that you've read so far this year? And I've read some pretty good books this year. I think my favorite so far this year, and that's not saying I think that's a slightly different thing than saying it's the best. For me personally, at least, sometimes the what I would consider to be objectively the best book that I've read is maybe not the same as my favorite, as a book that I've particularly liked. So I prefer to answer this as my favorite read of the year so far. And for me, That has been The Red Winter by Cameron Sullivan. This book was dark and funny and gory and has just wonderful characters that left me wanting to read a bunch more books about them, right? I just want to read a bunch more books about these characters. And fortunately, it sounds like Cameron Sullivan is going to be writing more books about these characters, so that has me very excited. But yeah, The Red Winter is, you know, it's very well written. To me, it was blurbed by T. Kingfisher, which as I was reading it, I felt like I get why this was blurbed by T. Kingfisher, because in some ways it does read a little bit like a T. Kingfisher novel, and though in other ways it's very different from Kingfisher's style, but it's very well written. It's very engrossing. It was very unput-downable, and so it's just been my favorite read of the year so far. It's like really stood out to me. I probably will have to purchase it, honestly, and add it to my collection, because I already find myself kind of wanting to reread it. So that's that one. The second question on this tag is, what's the best sequel you've read so far this year? I've read a bunch of sequels so far this year, most of them Witcher novels. But honestly, I think the best sequel that I've read this year so far has been The Winter of the Witch by Catherine Arden. I feel like she is so good at finding a satisfying conclusion to things, and she really brings everything together in a way that felt like it was perfect, right? The character arcs all come to a great end point, and the plot threads, I think, from the first two books all kind of weave themselves together in ways that made complete sense and just really worked for me. And I really enjoyed my time with the Winter Night trilogy overall, and I thought that The Winter of the Witch was, you know, Catherine Arden really stuck the landing with it, and it was quite good and quite, you know, sort of magical in a lot of ways. So yeah, I think that one is probably going to be my favorite sequel of the year so far, notwithstanding all of the Witcher books that I read. But yeah, definitely Catherine Arden's The Winter of the Witch. The next question for this tag is, what's a new release that you haven't read yet but you really want to get to? And I have a few of those, actually. I have a hold at my library for Japanese Gothic. I think I'm 10th in line for that right now. I'm really looking forward to reading that one. I've heard very good things about it. It seems very atmospheric, very creepy, very up my alley. So I'm really excited to read that one. I don't know when I'm going to get it, but I will be reading it hopefully in the next few months, I would hope. And then I have a few that have been sitting on my shelf as well. So I have, obviously, The Tapestry of Fate by Shannon Chakraborty. This is the next book in the Amin al-Sarafi series. I really liked The Adventures of Amin al-Sarafi, and so I'm very, very interested to get to this at some point. And I also have this nonfiction book, Power Surge by Thomas Schatz. This is a new book about Hollywood in the late 90s and early aughts. And I really like Thomas Schatz, and I'm really excited that he has a new book out, and I'm very much looking forward to reading this. So yeah, that's a few of those. I always have a few of those. The next question is, what's your most anticipated release for the rest of the year? So this is a book that hasn't come out yet, but that you're looking forward to. I have two T. Kingfishers that I actually have pre-ordered right now, that I will be getting, and that I'm very excited for them both. I have the sequel to Sword Heart, which is called Daggerbound, I believe. I'm very excited for that one. And I also have her book about Astarion from Baldur's Gate 3. I think it's literally just called Baldur's Gate 3 Astarion. And she's writing this book, and that has me very excited. So there's a Star Wars book coming out in September. It's called Edge of the Abyss, which is the sequel to The Mask of Fear. Which The Mask of Fear was, I really, really loved that book. And this one, Edge of the Abyss, is written by Rebecca Roanhorse, which is, she's a great writer. I love her. I've read a bunch of her books, including one of her other Star Wars books. And she's great. I love her. Very excited about it. So there's that. And also there is the new sequel to the new Anna and Din mystery by Robert Jackson Bennett is coming out soonish, I think. And I'm also really looking forward to that one. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. But I'm looking forward to that one a lot as well. So there's a bunch of books that I'm really looking forward to for the rest of the year that are coming out. Yeah, that's that. The next question is, what's the biggest disappointment of the year so far? And I said this before, but I kind of like calling it a disappointment, because for me, rather than saying, well, what's the worst book you've read so far this year? Because I prefer talking about things in terms of the ways in which they did not live up to my expectations, as opposed to whether it's a good or a bad book. Because I think every book I've read this year has been enjoyable. I've liked all of them. I haven't read a book that I disliked, but that doesn't mean that some of them haven't in some ways disappointed me. And I think I would say Son of the Morning by Akwaeke Emezi was maybe a little bit of a disappointment to me, in the sense that I think I was expecting more from it than what I got. What's there isn't bad, but it was quite short, and it was, personally, I prefer my romances to be a little bit more of a slow burn than what this was, right? Like, it's good, it's well written, there's nothing wrong with what it is, it's just not necessarily what I normally gravitate towards in terms of the tropes of the romance genre that I prefer. So yeah, for me, it felt really fast, right? It felt like a really fast burn. And so I felt like I didn't quite have enough time to get really emotionally attached to the characters in the way that I wanted to. So that would probably qualify as my biggest disappointment. Again, it's not like a bad book. I certainly wouldn't say that I wouldn't hesitate to recommend it to somebody who is looking for that kind of thing. But yeah, it was really fast for me. It was really fast for my taste. What is your biggest surprise so far? Biggest surprise? I'm not sure if I've had any. Again, this is a question, I think I've said this before when I've done this tag in previous years. It's kind of tough to surprise me, just because I go into most books with the expectation that I will like it and not much more or less, right? And so genuinely surprising me is somewhat tricky. I'm literally just sort of scrolling through my list of books that I've read this year and trying to figure out which one might have been the most surprising to me. I guess maybe Project Hail Mary. I think I went into Project Hail Mary sometimes when a book is really, really, really popular, I have a bit of a contrarian streak in me that is a little resistant to falling in with the crowd. And so part of me did go into Project Hail Mary with some skepticism and thinking, if it's so dang popular, that there's got to be something that I'm going to find wrong with it and that I'm going to have a problem with or whatever. And I really didn't. I didn't love it maybe as much as some people do. I thought it was pretty light and fluffy, and it's not something that's really going to stick with me for a long time. But I did genuinely enjoy my time with it, and I didn't have any problems with it. It's a very fun book, and it did surprise me in that, the plot twist of Rocky or whatever was really, was really a good time for me, and I was not expecting it to be essentially like a buddy cop type situation, which was a pleasant surprise, I think, because I was more expecting it to be Ryland Grace by himself for basically the whole book. But he wasn't, and that relationship really came out of nowhere and really worked for me very well. So that was also a big surprise. So yeah, surprising. Favorite new to you author. As I've said, I've definitely read some new to me authors this year. And, I could reiterate that Cameron Sullivan, I'm very much looking forward to what he has in store for us with his next books after I really enjoyed The Red Winter. I've definitely read several authors for the first time this year, though. I think so far my favorite new to me author for the year might be Seth Dickinson. I randomly was at the library last month and pulled The Trader Baru Cormorant off the shelf because it was there, and I was looking for something to read, and it was there. And I really, really, really liked it. It was really, really good. And I already have the sequel from the library, The Monster Baru Cormorant, and I'm really looking forward to that. I'll be starting that probably later today, actually. I'll be starting reading that. And yeah, I really like Dickinson's writing. He's a very good writer. So he might be my new favorite new to me author so far this year. Fictional crush. I've said before, and I'll say again, I don't really get fictional crushes, so we're going to skip over that one. Newest favorite book character. There's several of them that I'm really into right now. Rocky from Project Hail Mary is a good one. Baru from Baru Cormorant is a good one. I really like Sylvia in The Red Winter. I also really enjoyed a lot of the characters in Les Mis, particularly Gavroche. He's a really great character. He's probably my favorite character in this book. Yeah, so there's a lot of really good characters that I'm really into right now. A book that made you cry. A lot of books make me cry. Gotta pull this thing off. I gotta pull this brick off again. Les Mis made me cry. The Trader Baru Cormorant made me cry. I cried a little bit at Winter of the Witch. I definitely cried a little bit at Winter of the Witch. Jane Eyre always makes me cry. Yeah. The Poet Empress made me cry a little bit. Like, I've said before and I'll say again, it's pretty easy to make me cry, actually. I'm over 40 years old now. I cry quite easily. The hormones just... I cry a lot. But yeah, those are some good ones that have made me cry so far this year. Then the book that made you happy, all of them. Project Hail Mary definitely made me very happy, particularly happy. The Red Winter made me very happy. I really enjoyed The Unicorn Hunters by Catherine Arden. That also made me quite happy. Many of the books that I read make me feel quite happy. Yeah. I'm always happy when I'm reading the Witcher books. Yeah. And then I always tack on the final question of what's the best adaptation you've seen so far this year, because obviously I like adaptations, and I will say though, the only one that I've seen so far this year where I'm both familiar with the source material and really like the adaptation was probably Project Hail Mary. But even though I haven't read the Vampire Chronicles, like, the Vampire Lestat has kind of become my entire personality. It's really good. It is really, really, really good. Basically, this year, this question is just an excuse for me to push AMC's Vampire Chronicles show at you to watch, because everybody should be watching it. Interview with the Vampires, the first 2 seasons, and we're currently in the 3rd season, and we're doing the Vampire Lestat, and it is amazing. Last week's episode made me cry and laugh and made me desperate for Sam Reed to win an Emmy, because he's just absolutely incredible. So yeah, that's what I got. That is the Mid-Year Freakout Tag. As for the rest of the year, again, I really need to get back on track with my various reading projects, most of which I talked about way back in my 2026 goals video that I made at the end of 2025, and I really haven't done much on most of these projects. The only one I've really been keeping up with is Realm of the Elderlings. The others have really fallen by the wayside, and I want to get back to them. So in the second half of the year, that's what I'm going to be doing. Oh, and the final question for this tag is usually, what books do you still have to read this year? And of course, as always, the answer is both all of them, because I always want to read all the books, and none of them, because I don't have to read any books if I don't want to. But to answer in the spirit of the question, that is my answer, right? I really need to get back on track with my reading projects. So my classic fantasy project, my History of Middle-earth series read through, my Discworld read through. I want to read my, I keep tossing around John Steinbeck and James Baldwin as authors that I want to read more of. And I still haven't read anything else by either of them this year. So I really need to do all of that. I really need to prioritize that stuff. So so that's what I want to do for the rest of the year. So yeah, that's what I got. Let me know in the comments below what your best and worst reads of the year so far have been. If you've got anything you're particularly looking forward to for the rest of the year, let me know. Let's talk about it. Leave a like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to see more, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.